Howdy, welcome back to No Filter. Most of us knew that the anti-immigrant rhetoric during Trump's presidential bid would open a can of white supremacist worms. But the far right's ideology is even more extreme than expected, because at some point, while we were all distracted by Trump's scandals, his administration, in addition to his Fox News cheerleaders, slowly moved their goalposts to target legal immigrants. Let's begin with the most recent example. Here's Laura Ingraham on Fox News, clearly fear-mongering about massive demographic changes thanks to illegal and legal immigration.
In some parts of the country, it does seem like the America that we know and love doesn't exist anymore. Massive demographic changes have been foisted upon the American people. And they're changes that none of us ever voted for and most of us don't like. From Virginia to California, we see stark examples of how radically, in some ways, the country has changed. Now, much of this is related to both illegal and, in some cases, legal immigration that, of course, progressives love.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Ingraham tried to walk back her statements after receiving backlash by saying her commentary had nothing to do with race. Here's the thing, you can't pretend like your hate for immigrants isn't racially charged when you specifically highlight scary demographic changes in your rant. Ingraham isn't the only person who has gone after legal immigrants. There are actual White House officials who have already executed policy and have pending policies that would clamp down on immigrants who enter the country legally. Stephen Miller, Trump's proud white nationalist advisor, was the one who crafted the administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy, which separated children from their families as they were seeking asylum at the US-Mexico border. While much of the conservative narrative insisted that these immigrants were attempting to enter the country illegally, evidence showed that many families were blocked from ports of entry, which is the legal way of entering the United States as an asylum seeker. Even the Center for Immigration Studies, an anti-immigrant think tank, found this to be criminal and objectionable, writing that, quote, although the US Customs and Border Protection has insisted that asylum seekers pass through ports of entry, it has denied potential non-Mexican asylum seekers access to the inspection area at ports of entry and left them stranded in Mexico. The administration has criminally prosecuted and detained asylum seekers in order to deter others from coming. It has separated children from their parents at the border. Okay, when the Center for Immigration Studies writes stuff like that, you know your administration has gone too far. But if you think that was a particularly horrendous moment in Trump's administration, keep in mind that Stephen Miller isn't done yet. NBC News broke the story of what Miller currently has up his sleeve.
The White House is now finalizing a proposal. They don't need to go through Congress to get this done. They can just do this through a rulemaking. This would limit those immigrants from getting that citizenship or those green cards if they've ever been on public benefits. That includes Obamacare. It includes child health insurance. It includes food stamps. It includes a lot of programs that immigrants, especially those working in low-wage jobs, would need just to support their families. And again, these aren't illegal immigrants. These are people lawfully in the United States trying to get status either as citizens or as legal permanent residents.
So let me just summarize. If you are in the country legally with a green card and you are doing everything you can to legally obtain full citizenship in the United States, Stephen Miller is doing everything he can to prevent that from happening. On a recent episode of the Young Turks, I shared more on this story. These are people who are currently in the US with visas or with green cards. They're individuals who are working, paying taxes. And so the Trump administration, specifically Stephen Miller, wants to make it impossible for them to ever gain citizenship. I want to be clear for the second time. These are people who are in the country legally, they have green cards, they are working, they are paying taxes. I'm being repetitive on purpose because I want to make sure everyone understands what's happening here. Miller is going to exploit this myth, and it is a myth, that undocumented immigrants are mooching off welfare programs to drum up support for his policy among conservatives. But illegal immigrants do not qualify for federal government programs. Only people in the country legally do. Again, these are people who pay taxes, so they're entitled to help if they qualify for it. NBC highlighted the story of a Haitian man named Louis Charles, who has a green card, owns a home, and pays taxes. But despite working 80 hours a week as a nursing assistant, Charles had to use public programs to support his disabled daughter, adult daughter, because healthcare in this country is so outrageously expensive. Charles is doing everything he can to legally gain full citizenship in America, but under Miller's proposal, his chances are slim to none. And keep in mind that under Trump, getting a green card is already much more difficult. According to NBC News, data from the first quarter of fiscal year 2018 indicates that the administration is on track for a decline in immigrants granted green cards by 20%. I want to share data dispelling the myth that people in the country illegally abuse taxpayer-funded government programs. They don't because they can't. On a state level, sometimes undocumented immigrants can qualify for programs in that state. But according to econofact.org, on a federal level, unauthorized immigrants are ineligible for most major federally funded safety net programs, including temporary assistance for needy families, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and Supplemental Security Income, otherwise known as SSI. They are also prohibited from non-emergency Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and the Medicare program. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible to receive insurance subsidies under the Affordable Care Act or to participate in the ACA insurance exchanges. I'm not done yet. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible to receive Social Security benefits, even though many contribute $12 billion a year to the system. The only time federal taxpayers spend any money on undocumented immigrants is when they end up in emergency rooms, which is why it's so important to pass comprehensive immigration reform so they can access preventative care instead of outrageously costly emergency services. When looking at legal immigrants, you'll see that even they don't abuse the system the way Trump's administration would have you believe. In fact, a study by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found that the biggest beneficiaries of the government safety net are working class whites. The study indicates that of all working age adults without college degrees lifted out of poverty by safety net programs, half are white, while nearly a quarter are black. Only a fifth, 1/5 are Hispanic. Remember that we're talking about people who are in the country legally, they qualify for these programs. This data completely disproves the narrative that Hispanics rely heavily on government programs. The National Academy of Sciences conducted its own immigration study in 2016, and found that less than 50% of legal immigrant households used Medicaid and food assistance. But we have some more data for you. When it comes to food assistance, 23.9% of native-born Americans rely on the program, while only 21.5% of immigrants do. 6.6% of native-born Americans rely on affordable housing programs, while only 2.3% of legal immigrants do. And 25.2% of native-born Americans rely on Medicaid, while 21.5% of legal immigrants do. Look, I'm not sharing these numbers to demonize anyone. Whether born in the United States or someplace else, we're talking about people who are here legally. These are our fellow Americans, and I find it our responsibility to look out for our country and help pull people out of poverty and into opportunity. But we cannot, and I will not, allow this myth regarding immigrants to continue spreading like wildfire by bad actors like Stephen Miller. It's an attempt to divide us through fear and hatred. I believe Americans are far better than that, and we shouldn't allow the Trump administration to manipulate us. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed my show, No Filter, and I actually film it every single Monday at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern. So you can check it out live on YouTube TV, just search for TYT Network's YouTube TV channel, or you can check it out in podcast form on iTunes later. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to check me out on No Filter.